What is going on? Welcome inside the Red Mile Rundown, episode 92, and I am your host, Johnny Stope. And alongside me, he is the great one, the big time, the Mr. I'm on every one of the podcast as well, Robert Munich. How are you doing, Robert?
To have the same nickname as Wayne Gretzky, wow! What an introduction to the pod today. That's incredible. No, yeah, things are going good. Yeah, I felt like I did the media tour last weekend. That article that I wrote kind of blew up a little bit. So yeah, and getting to host Barn Burner was super cool. So yeah, it's been a good couple weeks here. Yeah,
big time Robert is above me now on the whole podcasting, hosting a Barn Burner, being on about 9 other podcasts. And it was good on you, Robert. Great article, and thank you everyone last week for tuning in when we chatted about that article. It was a really good response and numbers from that episode. So we appreciate each and every one of you for making us a part of your podcast rotation. As always, Robert, it's August. Do you know what August means? It's training camp in junior leagues, which means hockey's getting a little bit closer. How excited are you that we are now in August, headed towards junior camps, and that means the NHL camps aren't far behind?
Yeah, I think we're now 59 days away from the start of the Flames season, which is awesome. That can't come back quick enough. Like I'm just a hockey nut. Like I could have hockey 12 months a year and I'd be super happy. So
me too.
You know, and especially covering a Flames team that season ends in the middle of April. I mean, it's a pretty long off season for us Flames fans here. So yeah, to get it back is going to be a lot of fun, but still enjoy a little bit of the rest of summer here. But we got the Hlinka Gretzky starting up today, which is super exciting. So I'm looking forward to watching that team. They got Maddox Schultz, Liam Pugh, and Landon DuPont, and Alexei Joseph. Like, it's a star-studded Team Canada, so I'm looking forward to watching that too.
You want hockey, you got it, Robert, because we did the summer showcase this past week. We got, like you mentioned just now, the Hlinka Gretzky on this week. So let's chat about what we saw a little bit about, some quick thoughts on that summer showcase last week. What'd you make of the overall event, Robert? How much of it did you actually take in? Because I missed some of those games in there, being summer and being a little bit busy as a father. But what'd you make of the overall event of that summer showcase? Pretty cool hockey, pretty fun event.
Yeah, I think so. And it's always good to see Canada and US play. Those games are always fun. I only watched the last game of the summer showcase because it was pretty expensive. I mean, to watch the entire tournament, it was somewhere in like the $90 range on HN Live, and to watch an individual game was $18. So I did pay for the Canada-US game just because there were so many Flames prospects, and just thought it'd be fun to watch that. But yeah, I mean, from what I saw, Ethan Wittenbach was fantastic. I believe he had 8 points in 3 games, and just watching him, man, like, he's got this ability to make, anywhere from, we'll call it like 1 to 4 or 1 to 5 extremely high-end plays per game that lead to really strong scoring chances. And I think those players are super valuable. Like, not many guys have that sort of skill, hockey IQ, vision to make those sorts of things happen. And Wittenbach's one of those guys. And, we talked about it last week with him when we did our top 10 prospects. Like, he grew up like literally living at a hockey arena. Like, his dad runs a hockey arena in New Jersey, and all he does is play hockey. And you can tell, man, like just the vision and the skill and just knowing where to go to create offense and to score goals. Like, he's got it, and not a lot of players do. So, that was kind of the number one takeaway for me from this whole, World Junior Summer Showcase was Wittenbach. I believe he led the entire tournament in scoring, and like, he's slowly growing into a guy that's going to be the go-to guy for Team USA at the World Juniors, and a guy who looks like he's going to be a really good NHL player too. So yeah, that was the number one takeaway for me.
Let's jump in there on Ethan real quick here, because you guys put out on Flames Nation a who's untouchable for the Flames, and I didn't have him on my list when I tweeted out, and I sure heard it from a few fans here. How close for you is Ethan Wittenbach to an untouchable? Because for me, he's not quite there yet, but man, is he making a strong case to get on that list in a hurry here. We did the Johnny Gaudreau comparison last week a little bit, and he's doing nothing but make those little comparisons seem like the right comparisons to have out there. Hell of a summer showcase. How close for you is Ethan Whitback being an untouchable for the Flames?
It's pretty close. I would say him and Rechny are getting into that upper tier along with Carson Karls, and I would say the next 2 to 3 years of first round picks for the Calgary Flames. I think those guys are. I think Rechny and Whittenbach are getting to that tier. I still don't have them there quite yet, just because, for example, like if a trade for like a really good young established NHLer becomes available and they say, hey, we really want Whittenbach as part of the deal, I think it's something that you have to seriously consider. If it's a Brady Tkachuk type of player or a Jack Eichel type of player that becomes available, then, I wouldn't have an issue including a guy like Whittenbach in a deal like that. But, with the way he's playing and the way he's progressing, like he's slowly moving towards that category of touchable. Like, do you have him there yet, or are you not quite there?
He's in that category just outside. Like it's going to take a lot to get me to move him, but he's not untouchable for me. But if he has another season like we saw last year, and as a freshman, he did Quinnipiac and leading the nation in scoring. He does something similar to that this season, then I might put him up there as a guy who might be untouchable, because we haven't seen a guy this dynamic with this ability in a long time, maybe since Johnny Gaudreau came through the Flames organization. So it's a small sample size, and I know like people love to make these declarations after a small sample or be early to the prediction here. I like to overcook my stuff in when it comes to being a sports fan. So if I'm a little bit late to putting Ethan Whittenbach on my untouchable list, I'm okay with that, because I still recognize he's a great hockey player. So for me, he's just outside that list. It's hard to put him in the untouchables, just like you mentioned there, Robert, with the potential that, hey, maybe we can get a bona fide number one center. Well, and Ethan Whittenbach is the difference between getting that trade done or not. I'm gonna move him to get that number one, no bona fide overall center. So he's close for me, and he's making a strong case to be on that list for me for the Flames. Great tournament at the Summer Showcase for Ethan Whittenbach. Let's talk about the guys on Team Canada a little bit. And for the record and for the news out there, Potter did not go. Colin Potter did miss the Summer Showcase because of the injury. They didn't want to rush anything back, so we won't talk about him. But let's just chat about the two guys on Team Canada for the Calgary Flames. Carson Karls and Cole Rechny both played, and you look at the clips on social media, you look at what they did in the game against the United States, and they both had pretty different summer showcases. I thought Cole Rechny really asserted himself nicely, where Carson Karls was kind of a mixed bag, depending on what you were watching and what you were looking for from the defenseman. What'd you make of those two guys at the summer showcase? Because for me, they had two very different tournaments.
Your analysis is bang on there. I mean, from what I saw, I think Cole Rechny established himself as the best forward on Team Canada. I think he is going to be the go-to guy at the World Juniors this year, because Gavin McKenna won't be there, Ben Kindle won't be there. Those types of NHL players. Even Michael Misa's still eligible for the team next year. Yep. So, which I always find that's just crazy. And even Matthew Schaefer could play on this team. Like, it always just shows you how great the talent is in Canada. But I really believe that Rechny will be the number one center. I bet you he'll be the captain of that team. And, from what I saw, I was just super impressed by him. Watching the game against the Americans on Saturday, Canada's entire offensive game went through Rechny. On the power play at 5-on-5, like, he was the guy that was running things for Team Canada, and his playmaking was very strong. His puck carrying ability was very strong. His creativity was outstanding. The one thing I really liked about Rechny's game was he reads the play incredibly well, like both with the puck and without the puck. There were a couple times where he would skate to areas and intercept passes by Americans. He would kind of dart in and out of areas in the offensive zone and win individual puck battles. Like an American defenseman would have the puck, and Rechny would just come out of nowhere and steal it and then create offense out of it. Like, you can tell he's super smart. The one thing you'd like to see is just maybe a little bit more finishing ability, maybe work on that shot a little bit more. But in terms of the hockey IQ, the passing, like the skating, like there's he's a really good player. And I think the Flames, getting him, I think it was 17th or 18th overall, is an absolute steal. So I'm really excited to see what he can do. And then, yeah, you're right on Carson Karls. And listen, this is a summer tournament. It's in the middle of July, beginning of August sort of thing. If somebody struggles, I'm not really putting any stock into it, but just like straight up, Carson Karls was not good. Like in the game I watched, he was quite literally the worst player on the ice. And even Stephen Ellis, in his World Junior Team Canada projection article he put out today, his quote about Karls in this tournament was, "I was shocked how poor Karls looked, but that's likely just a blip for an otherwise stout two-way threat." And I think he puts it really well there. It was a bad tournament for him, but in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter. I still think the upside on Karls is fantastic, and I think he's going to be a really good player. But he had a rough go of it for Canada there. But that's, and then the other two guys that participated were Chase Harrington and Jack Hextall, and they didn't get much playing time, so they really weren't able to make their imprint on this tournament. The one thing about Harrington though is that on Saturday he was an asshole out there. Like I love it. It was so good. Like he was super physical. He was chirping like everybody on the ice. There were a couple times where the American goalie would cover the puck and he would just stand like directly in front of him, like less than a foot, and just stay there. And, American defensemen are like trying to push him out and the goalie's trying to push him away. And like, he's just like doing these little things just to get under the skin of his opponent, which I just think is awesome. So that was pretty fun to watch too.
Anyone who watches WHL and watched Harrington in that summer showcase was like, yeah, that's who he is. He's a prick. He's going to get under your skin. And he did exactly that. That's why he was chosen for that team. That's why he was drafted by the Flames, just that style of play. He's going to be a pain in the butt to play against no matter where he plays. A little disappointed that Jack Hextall didn't get more playing time for the United States. Anyone who listens to the podcast know I built him up. And then the one guy that I only saw clips of and a couple of write-ups of, Theo Stocksalis did play for Sweden in this event. By all accounts, he had himself a very good tournament. He was fine for Sweden. I don't have a lot of analysis on Stocksalis, but it's nice to see his name getting put out there and then projected in World Junior Championships. He's projected to be the 1 or 2 center on that roster come the World Junior Championships. So Stocksalis doing all he can then to show what he is made of as well for them. I don't know if you caught any of Stocksalis yourself there, Robert.
Just the highlights on social media, and yeah, he scored a couple goals. He threw a couple big hits. He's a big sort of lengthy. It looks like a little bit of like an awkward skater, so I think that's something he's going to need to improve on here over the next few years. But a guy like Stephen Ellis, the Daily Faceoff, watched every single game of this tournament, and in his write-ups, he'd mentioned Theo Stocksalis a couple times in terms of players who stood out in a positive way, which is awesome. So, the World Juniors, man, it's going to be fun. Between Wittenbach, I think Potter's going to make the team, despite his injury here. Hextall could be a fourth-line center for Team USA. And then, you're going to have Reshny, you're going to have Karls. Team Canada is talking about getting back to being the physical force it once was. Well, if they want to play that style of game, Chase Harrington would be an unreal fit for that team. I don't think, he's on the outside looking in at all. I think he's got a legit shot to make the team. And then, Stocksalis for, first line center for Sweden, Tobias Treball, potentially the starting goalie for Czechia, like a lot of really exciting possibilities here for the World Juniors if you're a Flames fan.
The Flames could get close to having 8-9 people at this tournament if everyone gets picked that they've drafted in the last couple of seasons. And when was the last time the Flames even had 2 or 3 guys that we were excited to watch in this tournament? To have 5, 6, maybe 7 guys that we want to watch, pretty awesome, pretty fun to have. And it shows just how well the Flames have drafted. I know they've been put in a position to draft well, but how they've gone about their business in drafting these guys and having these guys in the organization. Now we get to watch these guys. Well, for me, this is half of the fun of building a roster, building a team. I know watching the NHL roster and seeing how they struggle to pick up a point in Nashville on a Tuesday, or watching Columbus come through and steal 2 points from the Saddle Dome, those nights can be tough to watch. But to watch these kids progress from being a draft pick to where they are now and potentially being what they could be down the road, this for me is part of the journey, part of the fun. I always try to tell people and my friends who are down on the Flames and having us watch, enjoy the journey, because it's not often you get to this point where, hey, you got 5 guys at the World Junior Championships and 5 guys playing in important roles for 3 or 4 different nations. Like, that is exciting for me to watch. And I don't know how many people are going to tune in before to a Sweden-Switzerland game. Well, now you're going to want to tune into that game to watch Theo Stocksalis and how he performs. Now you're going to want to watch the U.S. versus Germany just so you can see what Wittenbach's going to do that night, and potentially Potter and maybe Jack Hextall's going to do. You're going to want to watch some Czechia games, see what this goaltender's all about. And for me, Robert, that's super exciting from a prospect perspective and a building of the team perspective when it comes to watching the Flames prospects come up here.
100%. Like just look, I don't have like all like the rosters in front of me, obviously, but just kind of thinking back, I don't think we've ever had a World Junior tournament where there could be, upwards of, 6 to 8 players representing the Flames organization, and a bunch of them being in like top roles with their teams. I don't think that's ever happened before. I mean, last year they had Reshny and Parekh. Parekh was like the number one D man on Canada last year, and Reshny was playing a big versatile role with the team, which was super exciting. But other than that, it's usually just been like individual performances. Like Johnny Gaudreau in Russia was unbelievable. He just destroyed Canada. Dion Phaneuf in 2005 was remarkable. Aside from that, like I'm talking like modern Flames history. I mean, I know don't usually want to talk about the guy, but Dylan Dubé, captained Team Canada the 1 year. He was a good player. But like aside from that, like there hasn't been much from the Flames in this tournament. So to have, once again, Stocksilius, first line center, Wittenbach might be the best player in the whole tournament. Reshny, first line center for Canada. Carl is top 4 defenseman for Canada. Like really, really exciting stuff coming up here.
Yeah, like you can count 7 guys without even trying that could be there. And then he's probably not going to make it. You can add a guy like maybe Henry Muse gets in the mix in a bottom role, a 7th defenseman type role. Like he could be in that. Like, so you can keep going through the prospect list and find these other guys. But just to name off, you go back to our list last week, Robert, and I just by chance have mine on my whiteboard beside me still. My top guys, Carls, Reshny, Wittenbach, Hextall, Potter, Stocksalius, Trable, they're all going or potentially going and playing big roles. That's 7 guys of the 10 on my list going to that World Junior Championship. That's pretty cool. That's pretty fun.
Then add maybe Harrington, and then if a guy like Maceo Phillips gets off to a hot start in Medicine Hat, you never know. Like with his size and physicality and skating, like maybe he might be an option. So there's a lot to be excited about right now.
That's incredible. It's long have gone the days of hoping Michael Backlund's thing for Sweden, and that's our only guy at the World Junior Championships. Long gone are those days right now for the Flames, and let's enjoy it. Let's move on here. Let's good conversation lined up for today on the show, Robert. There's a lot of talk about how Craig Conroy's cooked, or Craig Conroy masterclass, the summer of Craig, however people are putting it out there. But it comes down to Greg's done a lot of good work, but now the next step needs to happen, and that falls on the shoulders of the head coach of the Calgary Flames. Let's chat a little Ryan Huska on the pod today, because this is a big season for the Flames in a few different ways. We talk about this being a big rebuild. We talk about all these young kids potentially coming at the end of the season. We talk about the changeover of the roster. We've talked about a lot of different things on the Flames here, but all really comes down onto the shoulders of Ryan Huska and what he can put together this season for the Flames. There's a lot of expectations going out in a lot of different directions here. So kind of figure out where we are at here with the head coach of the Calgary Flames, because as you put it in our notes here, this kind of feels almost like a make or break season for the boss behind the bench. Where are you at here with Ryan Huska heading into the new season?
I think that it is a bit of a make or break year for Ryan Huska, and mainly just because, the organizational shift has gone from trying to be competitive and trying to get the most out of a limited roster and trying to get to that wild card spot, to now transitioning and truly rebuilding and focusing on young players and development. So, over the last 3 years here, I think Ryan Huska, he's done everything in his power just to squeeze as much juice as possible out of what I would consider probably a bottom, anywhere from a bottom 10 to bottom 5 quality team in terms of just overall talent. Like from 2023-24, Huska's first year to last year, this on paper, this is not a good Flames team. Like it's really not, and I think a lot of Flames fans would agree. And they had some good players. Nazem Kadri had a couple really nice years, and Anderson, and Uyghur, and Huberto had the 1 year. Like there were some good veterans on the team, but like it was never good enough to truly like compete for not only a playoff spot but to win multiple playoff rounds. Like they weren't even close to that.
Mm-hmm.
But Huska was asked by guys like Don Maloney and ownership to be competitive. So now he's gone from that to now the focus should be 100% on development. So it's going to be really interesting to see how he goes about his business this year, because from the end, or I should say from the trade deadline to the end of the season last year, he did put young players in prominent positions, and he did open things up a little bit for those guys. You look like at Matvei Gridin, you look at Zane Perek, Hunter Brstevich, those types of players. Even a guy like Tyson Gross got some really good minutes in at the end of the year. Yan Kuznetsov. So now that the focus is on development, it's time for him to prioritize these young guys. Like if Connor Zari's still with this team, I would love to see him play a bigger role. With a guy like Matt Coronado, he needs to be a top line winger on this team the entire season and not be moved around the lineup. Sam Honzek needs to be put in a big role here and prioritize his development. And then, of course, you're going to have all the guys coming from college at the end of March, early April, and those guys are going to need to be put in the lineup. So, yeah, I think it's a huge year for Huska if he continues to treat things like, I'm going to play the most structured defensive hockey that I possibly can, and I'm going to really rely on my veteran players. I think that his job, might be in jeopardy. I believe he's starting year one of a 2-year contract this year. So, going into next year as a lame duck coach or only having 1 year left and I'm assuming he's probably middle of the pack or bottom 10 in terms of how much he's paid, be easy to move on from a guy like that. So it's really on Ryan to prioritize development this year, because if he doesn't, then the Flames need to go in a different direction for sure.
Ryan Huska needs to evolve like the Flames roster has evolved. So when he first got here, this team was trying to win. This team was trying to be a playoff team. This team really loved doing the Murray Edwards thing of trying to squeak in there and hope for the best. With the Flames, admittedly, and changing directions here, and the roster makeover has shifted and all that, and the plan of Craig Conroy has changed, Ryan Huska needs to change with it. And you had some good points there, Robert. Like, you need to find what works best for this group and find roles for these guys. You can't play this sound defensive structure and hope that you get the best out of Joel Farabee all season. And then hopefully that, Honzek finds this offensive spark just playing all this defensive structure. You got to kind of let these guys open up a little bit. Let Nemec, let Perek do what they do best. Let Coronado and Gridden have some freedom in the offensive zone. Let these guys do what they do best. So I'm really hoping that going into this season, Ryan Huska's approach has changed. We saw him when it was kind of mandated to him that he did change at the end of last season. He did play those kids. He was still forced to play some of those kids in certain situations. Maybe injuries had something to do with it as well. Those type of situations put forth to the Flames last year. So we need to move that this year. We need to be a little bit more forward thinking. If this is about development, Ryan Huska is a smart coach. He is a smart hockey mind, and he is smart enough to look at this roster and go, yeah, we're not good. We're not a Stanley Cup contending team. This isn't the end result, the end roster we're going to go into the playoffs to compete with. But to get there, we need these guys to take a step. You need Gross to actually be an NHLer. You need maybe Castana to come in here and play some games. You need Klapka to be who Adam Klapka is supposed to be. You need Paul supposed to get back to what he's doing. How do you get the most out of a Connor Zary? How do you get the most out of a Backlund at this point of his career? Frost, what is Morgan Frost? What can Ryan? There's a lot of questions for the coach to answer here and how this roster is made up here. But at the same time, he's a smart enough guy to figure this all out, and that's what he's getting paid for. And so for me, with Ryan Huska, it's all about how can you adapt to the changing roster. We saw a lot of changes since he first came in to the Flames organization, but this group here, this group on paper is not a top 10 team. This is a bottom, probably 5-6 team in the league. But how do you get the most out of these guys that's going to help them? And then when these kids come at the end of the year, when you say Carson Carls comes in or a Cole Reshny comes in, Ethan Wittenbach comes in, how can you implement them into the Flames system that gets them going at the NHL level, get the ball rolling forward the next season after that, so that they can hit the ground running and be effective in their rookie season? So There's a lot on the plate for Ryan Huska. There's a lot of expectations on Ryan Huska, and I think he can do the job. But I like what you said there, Robert, about this does kind of feel make or break for him, because if he can't teach these kids and develop these kids, they got to find someone else who can. And so it's a big season for Ryan Huska here. If you were to boil it down, Robert, of the biggest thing that you would like to see him change, for me, it's obviously the young kid thing. It's obviously hey, let's play the kids, let's develop the kids, put Parekh in power play 1 and let him figure it out. Put Matvei Gridin on power play 1 as well. Give him the top 6 minutes, let him figure it out. For you, what is the biggest thing you want to see from Ryan Huska going into the 26-27 season? Because for me, there's a lot to choose from on that bone there.
Yeah, there is. I mean, there a couple things come to mind for me. So number one, when it comes to the actual style of play, I really want Ryan Huska to open things up, because I don't think Flames fans in the last year at the Dome with a young team, with a young up and coming team, the last thing you want to see is it just be a defensive slog every single night. The last thing you want to see is the Flames finish in 32nd place in goals scored. Like you don't want to see that. And from the beginning of the season to the trade deadline, the Flames were by far and away the lowest scoring team in the league. They were 32nd place. The next closest team to them was New Jersey, and they had scored 6 more goals than the Flames. And then from the trade deadline to the end of the season, the Flames were 19th in goals scored. And that's where I want to see them this year. I want to see Huska, like at the end of last year, he did open things up. Like I noticed guys were exiting the zone earlier. They were making more stretch passes. They were entering the zone with a little bit more speed in an odd man situations. I think it was Megan Mickelson that said at the end of last year that from the deadline to the end of the year, the Flames were top 5 in the NHL in odd man rushes. You know, like those are the sorts of things that I want to see from Huska, because this year, like we just talked about, it's not about making the playoffs. It's not about being as competitive as humanly possible. This is a development year. And I think that Ryan Huska and Craig Conroy, I think they need to take more of an approach of let's entertain our fans, let's open it up a little bit, and let's generate some offense and give these people something to cheer about. Because if we go through another slog where, like I said, they're losing games 2-1, 3-1, 3-0, people aren't going to be interested in that. You know, if they are going to lose games this year, I'd love to see them lose 4-3, 5-4, like high scoring affairs, back and forth hockey, like allowing the young players to take risks. That's what I'd love to see from a stylistic standpoint from Ryan Huska and the coaching staff. And they did it at the end of last year, and we'll see if they continue down that same path. The other thing I'll just quickly touch on is I just really hope that Huska and this coaching staff, they really prioritize roles and minutes for the next core group of this team. So, you know, to start the year, I look at Simon Nemec. I think Huska needs to play him as a top pairing defenseman. Like I'm talking 23, 24, 25 minutes a night. Give him as much ice time as possible. Let him develop. Zane Parekh, play him on the top power play unit right at the start of the year. Don't be screwing around with that like he did last year. Like that, I think that upset a lot of Flames fans. Was Parech's number one skill set it's his work on the power play and his vision and his offense. And you're not using him on the number one unit. You're putting out Mackenzie Weegar and Rasmus Anderson. Like, what are you doing? So like that needs to change. And then up front, I look at Gridin, Honzig, and Coronado as like the 3 sort of guys that you look at as future core members of this team, putting them in positions to succeed. You know, Gridin on a top line, Coronado on a top line, Honzig, staple him to Michael Backlund all year and teach him how to play defense and penalty kill. Like, I think that's important. And then, of course, yeah, like we mentioned, you know, at the end of the year, Carls, Potter, Wittenbach, Reshny are all likely to sign. And I think it's really important that they give them some opportunity to show what they got and give them a taste of what the NHL is like. So, yeah, it's just, like I said, I hope he opens things up, and I hope he really prioritizes minutes and roles for the next core group of this team. You know, like if they're putting out, you know, Nemec 17 minutes a night or something like that, like what are we doing here? If Parech's not playing the first power play unit, what are we doing? If Coronado's being put all over the lineup and on a second or no power play unit, like what are we doing? So yeah, those are the big things I want to see from Huska this year.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Because this is the year, this year, next year are the years where you let these guys make those mistakes. You put them in those positions, like you mentioned there, Robert, and let them figure it out. Let Perek figure out power play one by running it for 80 games. Let Simon Nemec have all of the 5-on-5 minutes and run a power play two. Let these guys sink or swim and let them learn. It's all about development, and you develop these guys by putting them in a situation that they're in the NHL for a reason. What got them to the NHL? Those are the situations you got to put these guys in to help them try to succeed. It makes no sense to trade for a Simon Nemec and know what he provides for Team Slovakia at the Olympics, see what got him drafted second overall, and then play him 17 minutes on a third pair. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Put these guys in those positions to be successful, and I think Ryan Huska has as a he doesn't like to assign these roles, it feels like, to these younger players, but I think he kind of has to this year. I think he has to say, hey, Connor Zary, I know your name's been in the news and trade bait. Here you are. Third line, left side winger, go play. Or second line, right side winger, go play. Give these guys these roles and let them succeed and fail. And obviously, make sure that you're coaching these guys along the way. Say Matt Faye-Gritton goes out there and he has a really tough period against St. Louis in March. Fine. Let him have that tough period. Coach him up. Teach him why it was a tough period. Teach him how to get better. So it's going to be a lot of tough nights watching this team. We're all prepared for it. We've all heard it for a while now. They maybe surprise a team or two here and there with winning a hockey game, but it's more important that the development of these players is put before the result of the hockey team. And I know you can't have a losing culture and be okay with it. Crowd will come out of the woodworks here. For me, that's not a losing culture. You're teaching these guys how to be in these roles, how to be professionals, and losing isn't acceptable. But in order to get to where the winning is the consistent thing, like the Tampa Bay does, like the Florida Panthers does, like the Carolina Hurricanes, you've got to kind of go through the tough stretch here, and that's where the Flames are. And so Ryan Huska's got that's a hard job to juggle between, you want to win these hockey games, but you also got to develop these guys here.
The other thing too, like, and this is a Conroy and Huska thing, is that, like, I would love to see some of the Calgary Wrangler guys get a chance this year, and
an actual chance,
a real legitimate chance, not playing 2 games on the fourth line for 7 minutes a night like William Stromgren got, or like Rory Cairns never gets an opportunity, like a legit opportunity. And number one, Conroy's got to make room in order for Huska to do that, but Huska's also got to be committed to doing it as well. Right. So just like looking at some of the guys, in the Wranglers lineup right now, you mentioned Jonathan Castagna, William Stromgren, Rory Cairns, Sam Morton, Brennan Othman, Adar Suniev, Tyson Gross. Those are the types of guys that I would love to see get some decent runs in the NHL this year. And I know it's going to be hard to fit them in the lineup because there are so many bodies there right now. But, at some point, I would love to see the Flames, put those kinds of guys in positions to succeed.
Mm-hmm. So there are a lot of bodies, but there's not a lot of must-haves in the lineup either, right? So there are ways of getting these guys in the lineup, especially if, say, Rory Cairns goes down there and plays the first 6 weeks of the AHL season and is a point per game like he has been in the AHL. Like, he shows he is better than that league. Well, you got to bring him up and give him an opportunity. You can't tell me that a Tyson Gross is undeniable or Martin Apostle is undeniable at this point of their NHL careers. Like, you can find ways to get these in there. That's a great point by you. Making it a legitimate chance. Like, enough of these, like you mentioned there, enough of these 8 minutes over 3 games type of situation. It's stupid. Absolutely stupid. You kind of already mentioned this next point a little bit about the biggest changes you'd like to see. Is there what other changes should we see from Ryan Huska this coming season? There's a lot of that he has to adapt to with the changing of the roster. Who's going to be on the special teams? How do we go about approaching the playing style of the Flames? Is the biggest thing for you still just playing style, or is there something else that irks you about the way Ryan Huska's approaching this season here?
You know what? Like, I really believe in Huska. I believe in this coaching staff, just based off of what you see in the media, what you see on the chase, what you hear other coaches say about the Flames, how you hear the players talk about the coaching staff. These guys know what they're doing, and they are good teachers and they are good communicators. And, I remember after the Flames played the Tampa Bay Lightning, I remember John Cooper specifically said, that's a really like well coached team. Like Ryan Huska has that team playing hard and playing the right way. So, you hear all those things, and I truly believe that if Huska makes these changes that we've been talking about today, that there's the potential for him to be the long-term coach of this team. And even guys like Cale McLean and Trent Cole and Dave Lowry, I think they have the chance to be long-term members of the coaching staff too. It's just make those couple little changes, and if you take Huska's communication, his ability to get the most out of players, his ability to teach and communicate, I think if you take those qualities that he has as a coach and then just turn it into more focus on development and maybe opening things up a little bit, I think the Flames would have a really good coach on their hands for a long time here. I am a believer in Huska. I really like the guy. I like the way he goes about his business. I think he's been dealt, not an unfair, but a tough hand since coming to Calgary. Just, like I mentioned earlier, think about the expectations from ownership. They were unfair for such a bad team. To say that they need to be competitive and be pushing for the playoffs is nuts. And to have that influence from Don Maloney saying those same sorts of things is crazy. And just look at the roster turnover too. Like how can you have any success as a head coach when, a lot of like your best players are being shipped out left, right, and center? So I think he's been dealt a pretty difficult hand. And, considering the work he's done, I actually think it's been a pretty decent job so far by him. But yeah, just if he can just continue that sort of communication style and focus more on development this year instead of doing everything you can to win, I think the Flames have a really good coach on their hands. So yeah, those would be my only comments about him moving forward.
Yeah, I like it. I like it a lot. It's a big season for Ryan Huska. It's a big season for the Flames, and it's all coming down to development here because they're transitioning from the Saddle Dome into the new rink in a season from now. And you're going to want to be able to have a product on the ice that people are looking forward to watching. So this season's kind of a preview of, hey, coming up next year, we're going to have all these young kids playing well. But if you have a coach in there that's stifling growth and stifling how they're playing and suffocating the defensive style of game, and it's not going to be fun to watch. And so the new rink's going to get off to this really boring, floppy start. And it's not what you want as an organization either. So there's a lot riding on the coattails here of Ryan Huska, a lot of pressure on Ryan Huska. But like you, I'm a believer in this guy. I think he gets a lot of just hate on social media, but a lot of undue hate at the same time. People expect this guy to be a candidate for the Jack Adams every year and just to have this roster playing at this elite Florida Panthers level every single night. It just doesn't have the personnel for that. But I think if you put everything even on a level playing ground, level playing field, Ryan Huska is a good enough coach that he could get the most out of these guys and get a good roster into the playoffs. He doesn't have a good roster right now. He's working towards getting a good roster, and the future looks incredible for the Flames. Looking at who's coming with the Carrolls, the Reshnies, the Wittenbachs, so on and so forth. We talked about all those guys at the top of the show here. That this is kind of a transition season for the Flames from what they were playing like a couple seasons ago to what they're hoping to play like in a couple seasons from now. This is the bottom part of the rebuild. This is the tough part of the rebuild. And to be a coach in this portion of a rebuilding team, it's not an easy task. But I like that Ryan Huska is a teacher style of coach. And so I have faith that he can make the few changes he needs to make to be an effective head coach at the NHL level and help these guys get the most out of these guys. Perek and these guys that really need a nice teacher right now at the NHL level. They got it in Ryan Huska. The one thing I would love to see Ryan Huska do a little bit more, this is my final point on Huska here, lean on that leadership group here. You do have, and people are gonna say, well, Backlund's not the best captain, but he is a long-term NHL guy. He's been here forever. He knows what it takes to play in this market. Jonathan Huberdeau gets a lot of flack, but he's a good NHLer. He is a veteran. He's a guy you can lean on your veterans to help teach these kids here. And so it's not only putting the young kids in positions to succeed, use your veterans effectively so that these kids aren't swimming. Make sure that you have Zach Whitecloud playing with the right guy to help teach them the game. Make sure you have Michael Backlund playing, say with Sam Honzek again, get the most confidence out of this kid. So for me, I just like to see Ryan Huska lean on his veterans a little bit here to help teach these kids, but make it a learning environment for these players and then have a lot of fun with it. I think we put way too much pressure in Canada on winning hockey games. Let's have a little bit of fun with the Cheers group. It might not be pretty every single night, but have a little bit of fun here with the young players. Use your veteran players here. So that would be my final point here. Just use those veterans in the right way as well.
So okay, so we're talking about what we want to see from Huska.
Yep.
How realistic is it that this actually happens? Because this is a guy who's kind of coached, one way, hasn't really changed up until the last month of last season. And this is a guy who, I find NHL coaches, they're probably thinking in the future in terms of, I'm probably not going to be in Calgary forever. I need to show other NHL organizations what I can do and how I want to play. Is he going to be willing to open things up? Is he going to be willing to focus on development? Like, do you actually think that's realistic?
To a point, I think it is. I don't think it's to the point that we're all going to want it. Like, I don't think we're going to see it how like you or I would do it on a video game type of style. But I think based on what we saw at the end of last season and where the Flames are right now, and the message from Craig Conroy and the management group has to be very clear about it as well. If you give him his marching orders, I think he'll follow it. And because if you follow what you're mandated to do, the chances of you getting another job are high because people like guys who can adapt to certain situations. This will show Ryan Huska's ability to adapt to a lesser roster, a changing roster. We know he can teach. He's done it in the past. We saw him bring defensemen through the Flames organization when he was in Stockton. We've seen him teach guys before. And so he has that ability. The mandate has to be there. The communication from an eye has to be there. Because I think Ryan Huska has the want to do what's best for the team, for the roster. Right now, if it's best for the team is the development. So I think to a point, I think he does change it. Do I think he's still going to want to coach to win hockey games? Well, that's how NHL coaches are built. That's why they're at the NHL level. So I still think he's going to try to win every single night, and he's got guys that can help him do that with Dustin Wolf and Devin Cooley and net. He's got enough veterans up front that they can get some things done here. So I think that part's still going to play into it. But I think overall, I think we are going to see a small change from Ryan Huska.
And I almost wonder if he's thinking to himself, okay, I have 3 years of game film of me like shutting it down with a really bad team. And we got within literally 1 point of making the playoffs one year. Now I know a lot of it had to do with Dustin Wolf and not necessarily the team in front of him, but still an impressive accomplishment regardless. Yep. So because he already has that film and he can talk about that, maybe he can try to coach a little bit of a different way and show teams around the NHL like, hey, I can adjust. Like you were saying, like I can go from being a super defensive coach to being more of an offensive minded coach or a development guy, so that might be interesting to watch here when it comes to Huska.
Yeah, absolutely is. Anything else on Ryan Huska you want to bring up on the podcast here? Because that's a lot of Huska talk, and there's a lot going on for Ryan Huska this season, and he's a big season for him as a head coach of the Flames. Anything else you wanted to bring up with Ryan?
I don't think it's crazy to say that Ryan Huska is probably the number one key to success for this Flames development staff and development of young players. Like I think he is absolutely critical because he's the one who controls ice time. He's the one who controls roles. He's the one who controls line mates. He's got a lot of power here when it comes to the development of these young players. And I think he is critical. Him prioritizing development is critical for this franchise moving forward. So I think there should be a lot of pressure on him this year. And I hope that, media members are going to be asking him about these sorts of questions about what's his philosophy. Like, is he willing to open things up? Like all that kind of stuff. Like I'd love to hear some accountability from him on this and some answers on this. But yeah, I think the key to success for a lot of these young players will be how Ryan Huska deploys them and how he uses them. It's going to be probably might be the most interesting part of this season for me in terms of what I'll be looking for. So yeah, I'm fascinated by it.
Yeah, it's definitely a big storyline. I love how you made him sound like a villain there for a second. He has all the power to do it. So and hey, he could be the villain at the end of the day, or he could be the hero. He has the opportunity in front of him here and And really, if you break it down to his career, this is kind of a make or break for his career too. He could really put himself in a different echelon of coach, depending on the job he does here with this Flames rebuild here. So it'd be interesting to watch. Definitely a big storyline. Speaking of big storylines and guys that have a lot to prove this season, there's a guy that plays up the middle of the ice for the Flames here on an expiring deal. And a lot of people seem to already have their mind made up what to do with number 16. Big season ahead here for Morgan Frost because the opportunity in front of him to be number one offensive center for the Flames is there on the table for him. An opportunity to have a good career, a good season to help his career out, to maybe earn a big contract. Potentially being re-signed by the Flames or being moved. There's a lot on the table for one Morgan Frost. So all that being said, Robert, what are we doing with Morgan Frost this season? Because I think a lot of it depends on how he performs, of course, but what do you do with Morgan Frost if you are Ryan Huska and the Calgary Flames?
Well, I'd be curious to hear what you have to say about this, because I know I've talked about it a little bit over the last couple of weeks here, but why don't you go first? I'd be curious to know what you're thinking here.
Play the pants off the guy. That's what I would do if I was Ryan Huska. This is a guy who, this will be an unpopular opinion on social media because I've already gotten hate over it. This is a guy that, and I know you mentioned it when you were on Barnburner as well, I'm actually open to re-signing Morgan Frost to be that quote-unquote next Backlund type of forward. And he's not Michael Backlund. He doesn't play like Michael Backlund, so let me explain here. This roster is trending to be very young, and you add in the 4 guys that could potentially be signing at the end of this season. You're adding in the young guys you already have here, and Hanzik and Gridden and Coronado, who's not that old yet, Perek, and all these other guys. You need a veteran voice up front, a guy who's been around the block a couple of times, and a guy who can play in that middle 6, maybe even further down the roster, depending on the night, who can be that sounding voice. So if Morgan Frost, who has this opportunity in front of him, can take advantage of this season and be given all of these minutes by Ryan Huska, number one offensive center, probably the first guy over the boards in offensive face-offs, a guy who has all the opportunity to maybe be on power play 1. So he's going to get opportunities to play here and be a leader for the Flames. If he can perform to what he should be and what he can be, the Morgan Frost we saw after Nazem Kadri was traded last year, this is a guy that I'd be okay throwing a couple of years at and some money at to be around. The salary cap is not a problem for the Flames right now, so I would not be at all worried about that aspect of things. I'm not even worried about the term of the contract. I know, and I love the point that you made on Barnburner about it, he is movable down the road. So I'm not worried about any of that. For me, it's how can Morgan Frost perform, and can he turn into that leader that you can rely on? Michael Backlund's not going to be here very much longer. Ryan Strome is probably going to get traded or not re-signed at the end of this season. You're going to lose those guys. So it really comes down to you have Huberdeau as your veteran up front. Maybe Farabee's the guy you can count on. There's really nobody else there. So there's an opportunity for him not only to be counted on the ice for the product, for the production, being on power play 1, to be a leader, to be a guy off ice that guys can really rely on and lean on. So for me, that's where I'm at with Morgan Frost. I would put him as the number 1 center. I'd put him as the number 1 option offensively. I'd put him on power play 1, and I'd play him a lot. And I'd be like, go do it. We saw some chemistry with Gridden and Coronado at the end of last season. See if you can harbor that again, harvest that again and keep going that direction. So for me, it's a big season for Morgan Frost. There's all the opportunity in front of him for him. And if I'm the Flames, I want to try to take advantage of that. And the other side of that is, if he does perform well, there's going to be offers coming. Guys are always looking for centers. So if you don't think he's going to be long-term fit for your roster and he's performing well, there is always the trade route that is available for Morgan Frost. So everything for me is on the table for number 16. Everything should be on the table for him. And if the Flames go down the road of re-signing him, I'm okay with it. If they go down the road of trading him, I'm also okay with it. But it's all up to how Morgan Frost plays going into this season, because he should get all the opportunity in the world for it, Robert.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, they are essentially in a win-win situation when it comes to Frost. And I feel the same with guys like Jake
Unless
Middleton.
he sucks. Then
right. And
there's no trade value.
I don't see that happening.
You're not signing. Me neither.
I don't see Frost being a 25-point guy and just super inconsistent and totally ineffective. I just don't really see that happening. But yeah, I kind of view him in the same sense as guys like Joel Farabee, Zach Whitecloud, Devin Cooley, Jake Middleton. If you trade him, totally fine by me. I think you could get a half decent return for him. If you keep him, totally fine, because they're good players and they're good veteran guys, and you still need to surround your team with good vets. And the thing that I'm going to find really interesting with Morgan Frost this year is, what if he does have a great season? What if he closes in on 50 points? What's his next contract going to look like? And the reason I bring that up is, in the future, when say Morgan has a good year, you sign him to, we'll call it a 5 or 6 year deal, because I think that's what the market would dictate, just based off of how much centers are getting paid, how much term they're getting, how few free agents there are that are good players. A guy like Frost will probably command that type of deal, and him being at that age. So, say he has a really good year, but he's a first line center on this team, and he's getting those huge minutes, and he's playing with the talented wingers, and he's playing on the first power play unit. A few years into that deal, there's going to come a point where a lot of these young guys, in the Flame system, are going to pass him in those offensive situations. Mm-hmm. So what are you getting? Are you getting the 50-point guy who put up that type of production in a very prominent role at the team? What does that player look like if he's down on a third line and he's on a second power play unit? Are you getting the same sort of value out of him? I think that's something that the Flames really need to think about this year. That, like I was saying on Barn Burner, you do need a stopgap at center. You had mentioned Backlund and Strome are not going to be here for a long time. Guys like Reshny, Stockselius, Jack Hextall, whoever you want to put at center, they're going to need like years to develop and turn into who they're going to be in the NHL. You need good leaders around them, and you need good players around them to kind of, take on those difficult minutes and take on those tough matchups. And, I think a guy like Frost, could be that type of player for this team. I think he's very well respected in that room. I think the guys love him. So I think he could be like a good sort of character leader for the Flames for at least the next 3 or 4 years. And when the time comes, when guys like Reshny and Hextall and whoever whatever center they're going to take in the draft this year, when they step into the lineup and become the difference makers, you could trade a guy like Frost. I think with the cap going up and all that kind of stuff, I think you could move him for, a half decent trade package. So I say all that just to basically say, let's see how he plays this year. Let's see, if he can progress a little bit and show that he can be, a solid second line center for the next few years, and just kind of go from there. But I don't think they're in a position right now where they have to make a definitive decision on the player right now. And, even if they do treat him as like a stopgap type of player, to trade him and just let him go, and then to bring in somebody and find somebody to play that Frost role, it might be really expensive on the trade market. Or they might even end up signing a worse contract in free agency. So that's another thing to keep in mind. So yeah, there's a lot of interesting things when it comes to Frost this year. Another interesting storyline I think Flames fans will be really interested in.
Yeah, and Morgan Frost is the known commodity too, right? Like, you bring in some guy, you don't know how he's going to fit in there. Morgan fits in here. People like him. He's a good teammate to those guys by all accounts, and people seem to like playing with him. So going out and getting another guy to do the job that you have a guy here to do, I don't understand it. And I know people are going to be like, well, you got to take advantage of the value of the player. Flames have a lot of draft picks. The Flames have a lot of prospects. That trading Morgan Frost out for one more, I don't think is going to make or break the rebuild. I think this is a player that you can take advantage of in more than one scenario. And like you and I have both mentioned, it does depend how he plays this season and how that plays out. And I think that there's no wrong answer. So it's a long way till the trade deadline from now for the Flames. They have time to figure it out. So there is absolutely no rush, but I love what you said there, Robert. We come up with 2 topics on today's podcast, and I think both of these topics fit in the top 5, maybe top 3 of most interesting ones that are going to happen throughout the course of the season for the Flames, and one definitely to keep an eye on, because this could go a number of different ways. I personally like Morgan Frost, and I think that if you put him in a role, because you can't ask Cole Reshny to come in here or a Jack Hextall to come in here and be an elite top 6 center right off the hop here. You're going to need someone to play with those guys. And for me, Morgan Frost fits that style, fits that role, and can be an effective player for those guys and a good veteran to learn from as well, in my personal opinion on the guys. So
yeah, and honestly, we might be not even putting enough stock into just to the idea of him being a leader and him being a really well-liked teammate.
Yeah.
My understanding is that, off the ice, like I think Frost, Farabee, Coronado, Zary, Perek, like I think that like group is super tight. So to have guys around like a Frost for call it the next 3 to 5 years, who are close with a star defenseman like Zane Perek, who is close with, one of your top wingers in Matt Coronado, trading these guys that are very well liked in your locker room all the time starts to get old a little bit with some of these players. And I wonder if that might play a little bit of play part in like the thought process behind what Frost's future is with the team.
Yeah, I don't think we're talking enough about how Michael Backlund's entering a two-year contract, and that's probably it for him, right? It's probably it. He's 37 now, 38 almost. That he's not going to be around to be that guy the Flames have leaned on for the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years here that he has been. He's not going to be the guy that can be the go-to at every situation. He's not going to be the guy that can, unless he becomes a head coach on the Flames bench, he's not going to be around to teach this next group of players. You've got to find someone. Morgan Frost seemingly has the ear of the room. He seemingly is, like you just mentioned, a nice group there of players that hang out together, become close. They're good buddies. And when you have a guy like that in your room, take advantage of it. So I wouldn't be so quick to throw Morgan Frost out there and trade away this guy. I think there's other ways the Flames could go about doing and fulfilling the trade roles. You got other guys you can move. What is Martin Posto long-term? What is Farabee long-term? What is Whitecloud? You go through the list of guys who could potentially be moved by the Flames in the next season or so. And there's guys out there. So if you really wanted another draft pick, there are other ways of getting it. So interesting to see how that growth goes by Morgan Frost. And I think at the same time, we have to have that conversation of, hey, Michael Backlund's not going to be around forever. Someone's got to be that next guy. That's next. And I like the word user, the next stopgap guy until the Cole Reshneys and the Potters and the Stock Sailors, whoever else comes up here, takes over this roster, becomes that next iteration of the Flames.
Can I throw a hypothetical by you?
Yeah, let's do it.
So I guess the overall question I have for you is, what contract would you be comfortable with when it comes to re-signing Morgan Frost?
Well, the cop-out answer is, well, what kind of season did he have, first off? But I'm okay. I don't
say he plays like he did last year, like he's in that 20 goal range, 40 to 45 points. That type of player.
Well, 20 goal scorers are going to get you $6-7 million a season. So are you comfortable paying Morgan Frost $7 million a season? I think I might be, if I'm going to get that production out of him. I'm not worried about the terms. So I don't care if the term's 5 years or 7 years. I'm okay with it. So the term is not the big one for me, because you mentioned it on Barnburner perfectly, and I like how you did it. And I think Mike Gould and Brian Park were a little bit out to lunch on this point. You can trade this guy later on in his career, right? It's not like he's this 45-year-old you're re-signing here. You're signing a guy who hasn't hit 30 yet, and you can trade a 33-year-old to a contender as a centerman. People want centers. People need centers. So he is a movable asset. So I'm not worried about the term. But the question then you got to ask yourself, are you comfortable giving him around $7 million to get the 20 goals out of him, to get the 45, 50 points out of him? I think I might be. What about you?
Yeah, see, like, if the deal was kind of like, we'll call it 5 years between 5 and 6 million, I would be okay with that just because of the rising cap. I just think that type of player at that age will generate that type of deal. But if we're pushing in to the 7 million range, that's where I might be a little uncomfortable with that number. So yeah, if it were up to me, I would probably, if I'm looking to re-sign him, I would try to get him within 4 or 5 years and 5 to 6 million in that range. If they can do that, I think it'll be a solid deal for the team. I don't think it'll impact their salary cap too much. And like I said before, I do think you could trade that deal at some point. So that would be kind of the deal I'd be interested in. But you might be right. A guy like Frost, if he hits free agency and let's say, I know as of right now, the free agent crop for next year, I think looks really strong.
Yep. It's not bad.
If
Better than this year's.
Totally. And we were having the same conversation last year, like, oh, the 2026 free agent pool is looking great, but everybody re-signed, which will probably happen again. So if Frost goes into free agency next year as, one of the 2 or 3 best centermen, he might command $7 million on a 5 or 6 year deal. So, it might end up costing that much, but I think, like you said, this year is going to be huge for him. If he steps up and is a 50 to 60 point guy, he will cash in. If he's kind of the same player he was last year, I think it'd be more realistic for the Flames to keep him. So yeah, it's pretty interesting. Hey, like it's gonna be fascinating to see how this plays out.
It is. Let me throw a hypothetical right back at you on this one though. So say Morgan Frost comes to you, he's had his nice season that you mentioned there, and they gave him the Charlie Coyle deal, which is 6x6. Would you sign it? Yes or no?
Ooh. Oh, that's tough.
Because that's what Charlie Coyle got right before free agency, and he was the quote-unquote top center available on the market this past season. Gets 6 years, $6 million from the Columbus Blue Jackets. That might be where Morgan Frost is at.
Yeah, I mean, and Coyle, he put up 58 points last year, which Frost hasn't really come close to. So, I mean, if
that's true, yep.
I would say no to that. I would want a little shorter, maybe a little less money.
That's fair.
Like if they could do like 5 times 5.5 or something like that, I think that would be a little more palatable if you're the Flames. Yeah, just because like Coyle has a 60-point year.
Mm-hmm.
He had 58 last year. Columbus is desperate, where I don't think the Flames are desperate right now.
But the Flames have the center need.
They do, but like they don't have the competitiveness need, like where I think Columbus was like desperate to keep Charlie Coyle because they want to do everything they can to make the playoffs, whereas the Flames aren't quite in that mode. And I mean, the other part of the conversation too is, if you want to replace Morgan Frost, I mean, you could probably find some free agent centers out there that might take a 3-year deal at big money, who might produce a little bit less, but I mean, you could still fill that void. I just think with a guy like Frost, it's hard to acquire those types of players. The guys at that age who are that productive, who are that well liked within your locker room. Like there's a lot to like about him being a Flame, and you're not going to get that necessarily with a free agent veteran signing. So yeah, 6x6, I would say no to that, but he might command that. Like he totally might.
I think given the rising salary cap and not being worried about term like I am, I think 6x6 I would go for. I think I would do it, given this, as well as the need of the Flames team. But you make some really good points about what Charlie Coyle is to the Columbus Blue Jackets versus what the Flames are looking for at this point of their rebuild. So very, very good. Well done by you on that part, Robert. But that's a fascinating conversation. This all comes down to one thing for me. What is Morgan Frost? And he's got to answer that question himself. And he's got to get off to a decent start this year. He doesn't have Nazem Kadri ahead of him anymore. He doesn't have any of the other roadblocks. He, by all intents and purposes, it's him and Ryan Strome as your top 2 centers offensively for this franchise right now. So the opportunity for him is huge to show what he actually is. And can he earn himself that seven-year deal? Can he earn himself that 6x6 that I'm talking about? Does he earn a little bit less? It's really all up to what Morgan Frost wants to be and can be. And he's going to get all the opportunities between him and Ryan Huska. That's a lot of good conversation on the podcast today, Robert. A lot of interesting what ifs and expectations that we put out here today on the podcast. Anything else you want the folks to know? Anything else you want to bring up on the podcast this week for the folks here?
No, you make a good point there. I mean, Morgan Frost will never have a bigger opportunity in his life than what he's going to have with the Calgary Flames next season. Morgan Frost is going to be basically the number 1 offensive center on an NHL team and play on the first power play unit. He will never have an opportunity like that again in a contract year. So like if I'm Frost, I'm taking this offseason so seriously. I'm treating this like it's a do or die season for me in this league. Like I'm coming in so intense, so ready to go, because him having a good year versus a mediocre or bad year might be the difference between him making on like a total contract. It might be the difference between $10 or $20 million.
Yeah.
Like that's huge. Like if he has a mediocre season, maybe let's say he signs five times 5, $25 million. if he has a really good season and pushes that 50 to 60 point range and goes into free agency as like a number 1 or number 2 center on the board, that deal could look like a 6x6. There's an $11 million difference right there. It could even be more than that. It could be a 7-year deal for 6. I mean, who knows? So this year, for him is just so incredibly important. So yeah, if I'm him, I'm doing everything in my power to ensure that this is a fantastic year. And I really think, him and Matvei Gridin, I think could be a really dynamic duo at 5-on-5. I think they could be really good on the power play together. Like there's a realistic possibility that Frost gets in that 55 point range just because of the role he's going to be playing. And if Huska opens things up a little bit like he did at the end of last year, Frost might not put up like the best defensive numbers or the best, film in his own end, but if he puts up 55, 60 points, like watch out, like he's going to get paid a lot of money. So yeah, it's just going to be a massive year for him in his future.
This will be his payday. He'll be 28 when that new deal kicks in, wherever it is, for however long it is. This is his payday, so the opportunity is in front of Morgan Frost. Good episode today, Robert, on the podcast. What's coming up from you on flamesnation.ca, and where can the folks find you and your work?
What's coming up at flamesnation.ca? I don't know. You tell me. It's August 3rd, and I'm desperate to come up with content here. So I think we might do like a jersey bracket, like the best jersey in team history. I might throw that together for August, but yeah, outside of that, it's going to be a bit of a slog here. So, but yeah, follow along with Flames Nation. Follow me on Twitter at Robert_Munich, and yeah, that's about it.
Yes, if you're used to the at Ring of Fire CGY like I am, it's no longer that. It is Robert_Munich across social media. So don't forget to follow him and give him your likes. And I'm Vintage Johnny 84 across social media as well. And of course, the show is at Red Mile Rundown. We appreciate each and every one of you for making us a part of your podcast rotations. Please do Robert and I a favor and hit that 5-star rating and review and help us build the show a little bit bigger and better for each and every one of you. Appreciate you. Enjoy the Hlinka Gretzky this week. It's going to be a lot of good, fun hockey for the young prospects. And if you're a 2027 prospect not already, tune in. There's a lot of good players in that, and we'll talk about some of those maybe a bit later on the podcast. Until then, have a great week. We'll see you next week here on the Red Mile Rundown.